Welcome to the Legal Networking Forum podcast. I'm Stewart Lambert, Paralegal Program Director here at South Coast College. The Legal Networking Forum brings together education, local resources, and connections to our community. We value creating great business relationships and sharing opportunities, resources, careers, and connections. And today my guest is Julie Lopiccolo. Julie Lopiccolo is both an experienced courtroom advocate and skilled collaborator. Knowing when to apply pressure or push for compromise is a natural ability of Julie's, and one that she continues to hone through ongoing education on best practices in negotiation. She believes in trust and communication with her clients, and that is essential to obtaining optimal results, and will aggressively pursue the best interests of her clients at every turn. Since Julie's clients call her honest, professional, and responsive to their needs, and frequently refer to friends and family to seek her advice and counsel. Since joining the firm in 2013, she has litigated or successfully settled hundreds of matters, including breach of contract, trust disputes, and custody and support issues. Julie Lopiccolo received her Juris Doctor degree from Whittier College School of Law, where she graduated summa cum laude. While at Whittier, she served as an executive editor at the prestigious Law Review and was named the Outstanding Graduate in International and Comparative Law. Her graduate and undergraduate studies included overseas programs in Thailand and Spain, where she studied advanced concepts in international politics and law. Julie Lopiccolo is a lifelong Orange County resident and is an active philanthropist in the area of child safety. She is a sought-out speaker and expert in water safety, and her recent testimony before a House committee in Sacramento helped lead to an important improvement of a key in child injury prevention law. She is currently working with experts across the nation to develop a national water safety action plan. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stewart.
You're very welcome. So pleased to have you here. And as I read your bio, I must say I was very saddened, of course, to hear about your son, but also equally highly impressed by the direction that you've taken. And one thing I wanted to ask you from the start is your idea of going to law school. And maybe you could just share with our listeners what motivated you, or where did you get the idea of going to law school?
Sure. Well, my undergraduate major was in history, and I loved reading and writing. My family always thought that I would be a good attorney because I also really love to argue with people. So from a very young age, I always wanted to, say when something was wrong and tell why I thought it was wrong and try to come up with solutions on how to make things better. So after I graduated, I didn't go directly to law school. I worked for a couple of attorneys while I was, waiting tables and bartending at night to see if it was something that I wanted to do. And I really, for the first time, got to see what it actually is like to work in a law firm. I worked with personal injury attorneys and also an estate planning attorney. So I saw a little bit of the transactional side and a little bit of the litigation side. And I really enjoyed it.
And that's where you got the idea of going to law school?
So I decided to apply to law school, and the rest is history. And I've loved being an attorney. That's
wonderful. And one thing I wanted you to talk about is your experience on the Law Review, because I remember when I was in law school, the Law Review was somewhat of a prestigious kind of organization to belong to. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the getting on Law Review and what it takes to get on Law Review, because I think many of our listeners may not be aware of that.
Yeah, so Law Review most law schools have a Law Review, and it's a peer-reviewed journal that publishes legal articles that are, again, peer-reviewed by both professors and by students. And the students run the publication. So to apply to be on Law Review, you usually have to have a certain GPA. At our law school, and I think it's common that the top, 10% can automatically qualify for Law Review, or maybe the top 5%. And then if you're not in the top 5 or 10%, depending on your school, you can write on. So you can write an essay or a law review article to try to get on the law review. And then if you're accepted, the first year, what you do is you edit articles. So you get really good at legal research, you get really good at legal citations, and you get to sort of explore all different kinds of topics of law. And so I served as a member on the law review, and then out of the members, there's maybe on our law review, maybe 20 to 30 members. They're the 3 L's or the 4 L's, the graduating class will serve the next year as the sort of the executive board. So I was chosen to be an executive editor. And so in that role, I was responsible for half of the publication, and I had my editors below me that helped with the citation checking. And it was a really big responsibility. It took a lot of time, but it was a wonderful experience and really improved my legal writing and my ability to persuade the court in real practice of law.
Absolutely, Julie. I know that it's very impressive to be an editor of the Law Review. As an editor, it's enough just to keep up with law school, let alone in addition to that, being on Law Review and doing the research and legal writing that you have to do as well. And so I thank you for sharing about that. And real briefly, you went on to study in Thailand and Spain. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about and how that changed you as a person as well?
Yeah, I have always loved to travel. And like I said, I was a history major. So learning about other cultures and religions and the history and politics of other countries always interested me. So I took whatever opportunity I could to marry those two interests together, study and travel. So when I studied in Thailand, it was a summer program for my undergraduate. I had my emphasis of my studies and my undergraduate was modern East Asia. So I studied in Thailand, and we studied, geopolitics. Basically, it was fascinating. And then in Spain, I did another summer program in law school, and that was a variety of courses on international and comparative law. And really, it's very interesting to learn about legal systems. The legal system that we have in the United States is not the same in other countries. So it was very interesting to learn about another country's legal system.
Yeah, because I think Spain, do they not use a civil code, something similar to that?
They have a civil system, yeah.
Civil system, yeah. And Spain is always one of those places I've always wanted to travel to. So when I saw that in your bio, I was thinking, wow, how interesting, and to get a legal education and study in a foreign country and learn a bit about the culture and the different legal systems that they have there. In addition to Thailand, which are probably two completely different countries when it comes to studying law too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and then you came back to Whittier and you went on to graduate from Whittier. Now, what happened once you came back to Whittier and graduated from Whittier? Did you start working right away, I guess, after taking the bar exam, or did you take some time off?
So I did start working right away. I graduated in 2010. It was a challenging time to get the job that you wanted. So I had some very specific desires about what kind of law I wanted to practice and where. I specifically wanted to move to San Diego. So I only applied for jobs in San Diego, which was a challenge because I didn't go to school. I didn't have my law education in San Diego. So it was definitely a challenge to find a job. And while I was looking for that perfect job that I thought that I wanted, I worked at the Legal Aid Society of Orange County, and that's really where it sparked my interest, and my experience began in family law. I worked with a lot of self-represented litigants in their family law workshop program, and I found that I really loved working with clients at this time in their life. So it was sort of kismet that I ended up there, and fueled my desire to work in family law.
And all this took place after you had passed the bar exam?
Yes. So I started working there, I think, while I was waiting for my bar results. Mm-hmm. And I did pass on the first time, thankfully. And so they hired me on as an attorney, but I wasn't a staff attorney. I had kind of a variety of jobs there. And some of them actually I was able to go to court and help represent indigent
Yes.
clients. So
Mhm.
while I wasn't a staff attorney there, it was kind of a temporary position, which is what I was looking for because I was really trying to figure out where I wanted to land. And that is, I actually had a child that first year, and I got married during law school, and I had a child. I got pregnant right after law school. So I ended up staying home with my son for about a year, which was such a, ended up being such a wonderful opportunity to do that.
To raise a
And
child.
after that year, is when I started with my current firm, Cottle Keen Lopiccolo Heyde. It was Cottle Keen then. I came on as an associate, and then was a few years later was given the opportunity to buy it to become a partner, and that's where I am today.
Yeah, that's great. And so with Cottle Keen Lopiccolo and Heyde, you've also become, I guess, somewhat of a trial attorney too, and an advocate as well. And
yes, so we do a fair amount of litigation. The firm, when I first came to the firm, had a lot of civil litigation matters, breach of contract matters. I handled in the last couple of years, I handled a large partition action that actually was multiple lawsuits for the same real property that was appealed. And I also represented the client in the appeal. So I've had a lot of civil litigation experience in the firm. We've also had several trust litigation cases concerning one in which we represented the trustee through trial, and several where we've represented the beneficiaries when they've had a challenge. And then, of course, family law is like lots of little mini trials. The way that family law works, throughout a divorce, you have many issues that come up that you may need the court's assistance on very quickly. You don't have the time to wait for trial. For instance, you might need custody and support orders right away when two parties separate. So we file motions, and they're really little mini trials that come very quickly. So family law attorneys are adept litigators.
Yes. Sure. And how did the practice of law change, especially in the last couple of years when courts have been closed and a lot of attorneys and even their staff have been working remotely? Did you have to make some substantial changes at the firm?
For sure. It's actually been a wonderful transformation, specifically in family law, because there was no ability to appear remotely in family law really at all. So anytime we had a hearing, whether it was a contested evidentiary hearing or a status conference, there wasn't an ability to appear by phone. There wasn't an ability to appear at all by video conference. So there was a lot of time and money spent on appearances, even though we didn't go forward, which happens very frequently in court. The civil system for a while has had court call in place, but this really forced the court to take on these remote procedures. And the family law court had some bumps initially, but really it's been very seamless. And while appearing remotely had its challenges at first, I think we've all come to really see the benefits of it. Yes. Very often we can make appearances, short appearances, and only charge the client like a 0.2 or a 0.5 because it was just a continuance, whereas it would have taken us 2 hours to leave our office, go to the court, wait for our turn, come back. So it's really been time saving and money saving for the clients as well. So it's really been a good development.
Yeah, in some ways it's been a blessing in disguise, hasn't it?
Yeah. So I have to say though, I do, when we have evidentiary hearings, and some are still remote, it's difficult to not be in the room with my client.
Right.
It's a lot of times they're testifying about very emotional things, and it's hard to not be there with them to feel sort of what they're going through and they're stressed, and to help them through that.
Yes.
So it's challenging.
And do you think that the changes that we've had in the court system due to, lots more online appearances, do you think that is going to be part of like this new paradigm shift going forward?
Absolutely. I think our courts are so impacted, and this really just gives the court the ability to take more matters more quickly. So I think once the court invested in the technology, all of us had to invest in the technology. You know, I think everyone was scrambling to get good cameras, good microphones, sometimes soundproof their rooms, whatever they needed to do to make sure they can make effective court appearances. It's really important for us that we have multiple screens so that we can appear and look at the court, address the court, but still be able to see our documents on our computer. So those kinds of technological improvements were necessary in our offices as well as at the court. But once we've made those and sort of got used to it, I think that a lot of the changes are here to stay.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that once we've established that client contact, there is an opportunity to meet with clients online as opposed to in the office. And I think that is even serving a higher value to the client, because now there's more access to the attorneys that might not have been possible if we were back in traditional meet in the office kind of situations, which are harder to schedule at times too, because attorneys are very often in court filing, appearing for motions. And so this allows us to have be a little bit more flexible. And I think for the most part, it's benefiting the client.
I think so too.
Yeah, well, great. And I wanted to also talk about some of your legal experience, especially some of the foundations. But just before we talk about that, I mean, you had a very sad, unfortunate incident that happened, several years ago. I'm not sure the year, but perhaps you can talk about that, and then, for our listeners, help us to understand how that changed your direction and your focus and your purpose as an attorney.
Sure. So in 2014, my first son, the one that I got to stay home with for a year, and this is why I said this was, such a fortunate thing. He was home with my babysitter. I had recently gone back to work just 3 days a week. My mother took care of him a couple days a week, and then I had a neighbor. She was 19 or 20, and she babysat him one time a week, and my office was 3 blocks from my house, very, very close. And in March of 2014, she brought him over to her home, which was nearby, and it had a pool in the backyard that was unfenced. And he was 21 months old. He was not a proficient swimmer, and children are very, very drawn to water. So he momentarily escaped her attention. She did not check the water first, and she found him in the pool. He did not survive. He was revived. He lived for 1 week at Chalk, and he became an organ donor, but he did not survive. So, of course, for my husband and I, this was a very devastating life event. But we were extremely, angry, confused, and, grieving, but we also were just blown away by the fact that drowning is the leading cause of death for children 1 to 4. I didn't know that. I don't feel like my friends knew that. Here I am, this intelligent, educated woman, thinking that I have all the information and tools and resources that I need to keep my child safe. And no one's really talking about how we can make sure that we minimize the risks of drowning in our lives. And I had no idea how many children every year in Orange County alone drown. It's actually quite staggering. So my husband and I established the Jasper Foundation, and our foundation works in the community to educate families, primarily caregivers, about the risks of drowning and how you can keep your children safer around the water and prevent the tragedy that we had in our life. Number one way to reduce drowning in children is to teach them how to swim. Children who have had swimming lessons are 88% less likely to drown. It's a pretty big number. And then again, the best way, and when we're talking, you brought up the attractive nuisance. I had the opportunity, my husband and I had the opportunity, and I testified in Sacramento on our current pool safety legislation, which requires 2 drowning prevention safety features at residential homes. A lot of people don't even know about this law, but if somebody were to drown on your property, this as an attorney, I would certainly point to this law to prove up your negligence. You had a reason to know about this law. You weren't in compliance with this law. And as a result, there was a death in your backyard and therefore you're responsible for it. So when we're
Right.
talking about liability, when we have a pool on our property, we really do need to be aware of what that liability is as a pool owner.
Yes, and that bill that you spoke in support of in testimony was the California Swimming Pool Safety Act, wasn't it? SB 442.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's an important bill because it does list, I think, seven compliance where a homeowner, a pool owner, I should say, must comply with at least two of those provisions to keep their pool safe.
Yes. So the best thing, especially when you have young children, is the isolation fencing. It is removable, and actually the isolation fencing that has come such a long way. It's a lot of people think it's ugly, but it's really effective to keep young children out of the pool area unnoticed. And because drowning happens so quietly and so quickly, it's really the best way to protect your family and other children on your property.
Yes, and I think in that bill too, they had a device that detects motion in the water, an unauthorized motion, if someone were to fall into the ocean. Oh, sorry, into the pool. Into the pool,
yeah. So there is a lot of new technology, and this is one of the things that we were looking at and reviewing. Well, on my work on the National Water Safety Action Plan, there's a lot of new artificial intelligence coming out. It hasn't been studied a lot yet. The only real pool safety or drowning prevention feature that's been studied with peer-reviewed research is the barrier fencing. But we're hoping that as this new technology comes along, there's lots of different things. There's cameras that detect still movements. So if people are moving around, as long as everyone keeps moving in the pool, the alarm doesn't go off, but if someone's still for too long, it can detect it. There's lots of new technology. There's also a device you can put in your pool if something were to penetrate the surface of the pool. So this is not when the kids are swimming. This is when there's no one in the pool, then an alarm would sound. So there is a lot of this new technology coming out. Again, it hasn't been very well studied, but it's very promising to have a major impact on drowning rates.
Yeah, and I would encourage our listeners definitely to review SB 442, the California Swimming Pool Safety Act, because it does list all of those different safety measures that we could easily take and prevent any type of accident in the pool. I think there were some height restrictions on door handles, and from exiting the home to the pool area.
Yeah, so if you want to use your door out to the backyard as one of those safety features, then it has to have an alarm on it.
Yes.
It has to be self-closing and self-latching. So so if you walk out to go water your plants, the door will close behind you. You can't leave it open. So that's less common to use, but you could put a specialized door. That would be a drowning prevention safety feature. But then the isolation fencing itself has gates on them, and the technology on the gates has come a long way as well. So the best thing that you can have is a locking gate. So as my children, I now have a 6-year-old who can open the gate and walk in, and she knows how to swim, but I still don't want her in the pool area unless I know that she's out there, because she could fall in and panic or hit her head. I don't want her in the pool area. So even though she can get in, I could lock it, close that key, take the key with me, and it's much harder to get over. Now she has to climb over it. There also is alarms on them now. So if they get left open or propped open, that they'll signal an alarm. So if the hose gets caught while you're watering or something like that. So the technology on those gates has come a long way. And also the gates themselves are self-closing and self-latching. So when you walk in, when your 8-year-old walks in and your 2-year-old's behind him, it closes after the 8-year-old. So the 2-year-old doesn't follow him in.
And so the more safety measures that people take, the more secure your pool will be as well.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, the fencing area is probably the most effective, especially with the latch and the lock on the gate itself.
It absolutely is the most effective. And to me, it's a non-negotiable for my children. I would never allow my young children to be cared for in a home that had an unfenced pool. This is a challenge for some people with like grandmas and grandpas.
Mhm.
Their mom and dad, grandma and grandpa may be helping watch their children, and they don't want to ask them to take this, to put this on their property. They don't feel like it's their place. But I really encourage parents to read our story and understand how quickly it happens. And, what if your mom fell down and they're outside and she can't get to your baby? It's
Right.
just too big of a risk. And it happens over and over and over again. And most people just don't understand how common drowning really is.
No, that's so true. Yeah. We heard about an incident in Hawaii as well. And so it definitely, one of my children's classmates, a classmate that used to play with my children as well. And I think she was 5, almost 6 years old, and she drowned after eating a donut, maybe half a donut. And that's another thing too, is people have to be careful about eating and making sure that you have an adequate rest before swimming in a pool too, isn't it? Because it could cause you to have, indigestion, or that could also affect your ability to breathe.
Yes. And, for older adults, and actually, our statistics in Orange County show that the two biggest groups of people that drown are the 1 to 5 year olds, and then the over 50s. And a lot of people that are over 50, what are they doing? They're swimming alone, and they have some other event that happens that would not have normally, led to their death, but because they were in the pool and nobody was there to help them, the cause of death is actually the drowning.
Is there anything else that you're working on? You've got a lot that you're doing for water safety, with testifying in support of water safety bills. And then you've got the Jasper Ray Foundation. You've also got the Orange County Task Force. But do you have any plans for the future or how to build upon this? Because I think this is so important. We live Southern California, we're on the ocean. A lot of people have pools. I live a little bit more inland where people have pools. So is there anything that you're thinking of or plans for the future?
Oh, Stewart, so many plans. This is one of the challenges of life, work, trying to do the things that we're passionate about. I could 100% spend all of my day on water safety. I love being a lawyer though, and this is my practice and how I earn a living. So it actually is, I have to find a balance. I do as much as I can when it comes to water safety. I have so many ideas. I mean, I'm helping the California Water Safety Coalition be established right now, and helping them set up their 501c3 and sitting on that board. And that's really exciting because we're trying to bring together all of the actors working in water safety, lifeguarding agencies, the health department, all of these agencies all throughout the state of California, big state, but we're not working together. So we're trying to set up a water safety coalition so that we can share resources. When we have this great program in Orange County, for example, we can make it really easy for San Diego to do the same thing, and LA cities to do the same thing, because we've done it. We have all the materials, we have the idea, we have the press release, we have everything. We could give it to you, and then you can just do it and expand the programs by working together. So I'm working on that right now. I'm also, we're working on relaunching in our law firm, relaunching our estate planning practice in a new way. That's really exciting. So there's a lot to do.
You certainly have a lot on that you take on, Julie, and it's very impressive with your law firm and your law practice, with family law, helping families, and also estate planning as well. In addition to your philanthropic work that you're working on, how do you manage all of this and be a mother at the same time with children, and your social life and your professional life? What keeps you going? Because I think we need to get some of your energy and your passion.
That's a good question, Stuart. Actually, when you emailed me, and I was thinking about, hobbies. So I was like, what hobbies? I don't have time for hobbies. Especially when you have young children, my kids right now are 3.5 and 6. So they are young, and really in all my free time, all I want to do is be with them because I'm away from them during the day at
Yes.
work. And I don't work full time. I try to take Fridays off, which usually is filled with doing water safety things, but it really is, it is hard to balance, and you just have to sort of give yourself some grace.
Mhm.
And write things down and plan for the future, and just keep, focus on what you have accomplished, and just, don't get frustrated when you can't do everything, because really
Right.
it's very easy to feel like you should be and could be doing more, but you're
Yeah.
only you're only one person. So
Well, I must say you're definitely an inspiring person, and I think with all that you've accomplished, and in addition to some of the awards that you've received, as one of them I'm seeing here is the Outstanding Attorney Under 40. You've received that Remarkable Woman's Award 2020. You also have the Blue Ribbon Award for Prevention of Child Abuse in 2017, in addition to the Outstanding Graduate. But also, I think there was the your former executive board member of the National Association of Women's Business Owners as well, right?
yeah, so I'm still a member of, but spent the last 5 years on the board of the National Association of Women Business Owners Orange County chapter. So this is a national organization that was developed really to advocate for women business owners on state and federal level. So NAWBO is the acronym for it. These women were, our predecessors were responsible for helping women be able to open their own bank accounts and own businesses and own property and things like that. So this organization started out as a lobbying organization for women. And today it exists all throughout the nation, and really brings together women entrepreneurs, women business owners, to make sure that we're providing support for one another, and so that we can be successful in our communities.
Wow, that's really impressive, Julie. There's so much. I wish we had more time to go into this more, but we've learned so much. But in summary, I would say that you've really shown us all that you can turn something, from adversity and turn something into a desire to promote welfare for others. If you find a good cause and get passionate about it, and you can turn your career, your strengths, like you as an advocate, you have that experience in arguing and, in presenting your case for your client, but we can turn that same type of skill into the good of others if we just channel our efforts. So I think all of us have that ability. You look into the skills that you have in your own career, whatever it be, especially with lawyer, we have skills as, legal research skills and advocacy skills, but see what you can do. See if you can turn that around and to help others. And you've really shown us that you can do all these things. And sometimes we wonder, where do we get the energy from? We don't know. But it's if you have a mission and you have something you believe strongly in, somehow that time comes. I think when we had kids, I have 2 children, and I always wondered, how do you get the money to, support your kids and do all the things that you have to do? Well, somehow you just find the money. You just find the time to be with your kids. And I think you've really inspired us all in that way. And Julie, I just really thank you for being transparent and all that you're doing. This has been just a wonderful meeting, one of you. I have thoroughly enjoyed this meeting and this podcast together. And so I just want to thank you for, just opening up, being transparent, and sharing all that you do for humanity and for child safety in the water. I think this has been very valuable for all of us here.
Oh, thank you so much, Stewart. And I have to say, what you guys are doing at South Coast, you're providing so many wonderful resources to your students and the public at large by, interviewing people in the community and bringing them educational opportunities. So I'm happy to help. I'm honored to have been asked. And, anytime that we can help with your mission, please, feel free to reach out, and love to do anything to help your mission as well.
Thank you.